Good afternoon, everybody, and happy World Ocean Month, and welcome to today's How Tuesday webinar, which will provide an introduction to the Mid-Atlantic Ocean Data Portal, or what a lot of people call the Marco Portal for short. I'm Karl Vilacoba. I am the Communications Director and Ocean Data Manager for the Monmouth University Urban Coast Institute, which is located about a mile from the beach in West Long Branch, New Jersey. This is a webinar that I like to give at least once or twice a year. It's a full 101 tutorial that we hope is helpful for newcomers, as well as for returning users who would like a refresher. Often I find that even people who are heavy users of the portal will tell me that they've learned something that they didn't know from being a part of these sessions. A note that I will be recording this webinar for those who couldn't attend. It will be posted on our blog and webinars page, maybe by the end of the day, but certainly over the next day or two. So on to our agenda. And you guys can all see this okay, right? My screen? Awesome. Thanks, Heather. So I'm going to start off with just a couple of slides giving some context and background about the portal, followed by a deep dive into a full tour of the site, its data and tools. And then I'll get into an open Q&A and discussion, but really this will be a pretty small group. These webinars usually are, so we can definitely keep this fairly loose. And so, if anybody has a question on the spot about something that they're seeing, if they want me to go back and explain something, no problem at all. Just jump right in and let me know. So I often start a portal discussion by showing an image like this, which I think puts it into context and what it does. When most people go to the beach and they put their chair down in the sand and look out at the ocean, they see something like this and they say to themselves, what a relaxing view this is, just nothing but water and this calm, empty void for miles and miles around. But the reality is something different, that the ocean is a very busy place, and especially here in the mid-Atlantic, where it's getting busier all the time, and we've got one of the busiest ports, two of them actually, in the whole country, in New York and New Jersey, and then down in Hampton Roads, plus Philadelphia, and everything coming in and out of Delaware Bay. We are kind of a nexus for the undersea cables and telecom cables that come in, connecting us to Europe and South America and other places. We have a thriving offshore or commercial fishing industry. We have, for the first time, freestanding structures out in the middle of the ocean with offshore wind. Not to mention just recreational boaters and fishers and all kinds of other things. And what the portal does is show you where all of these things are and how they connect with each other, and in some cases how they conflict with each other, so that people who are in ocean management roles can make better informed decisions. So what's on the portal? Currently about 6,000 different map layers organized under a dozen themes. We house long-range data focused on ocean areas, as opposed to something like the Maricus Ocean Map, which has real-time data. We take a lot of real-time data that are collected from various providers and kind of average it to show more long-range patterns that can help with ocean planning. We have a lot of tools for users that can help them share maps and collaborate together on projects. There's a lot of instructional and educational resources, which I'll give you a quick run through, like a portal blog, ocean stories, webinars like this, a calendar. The portal team currently is Monmouth University's Urban Coast Institute, where I sit, Rutgers University, Duke University, which really specializes in our marine life data. The New York State Department of State sits on our tech team and is kind of a state voice for what we do. Our developer is EcoTrust out of Portland, Oregon, and we all work under the guidance of MARCO, the Mid-Atlantic Regional Council on the Ocean. And if you're not familiar with MARCO, it is the federally recognized regional ocean partnership for the Mid-Atlantic, formed by an agreement of the five governors in the Mid-Atlantic, which we would uh, basically say are New York, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia, all to work together on ocean issues of mutual interest. It is currently chaired by Brian Green from the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality. And we have a steering committee of sorts, the Ocean Mapping Data Team, the OMDT, which helps guide a lot of the stuff that we're putting on the portal and the work that we do. And that is currently chaired by Kevin Hassel from the New Jersey DEP. One of the things that we did through the portal is take a lot of data that was scattered in, 100 different government offices and bring it under one easy umbrella and really curated it to focus on what the needs and important things are for the Mid-Atlantic. So there is a federal level portal, the Marine Cadastre. We take a lot of baseline data from them, but not everything. We don't need Hawaiian whale data or things like that for the Mid-Atlantic. There is a New England counterpart to MARCO called NROC, and we work with them very closely, especially on developing data together, big data sets of mutual interest and need, especially stuff like fishing and vessel traffic. And there are a lot of state portals and GIS sites throughout the Mid-Atlantic that in some cases we take some data sets from them to help balance our needs. And we serve a lot to those sites as well. A few examples of how the portal is used. Certainly offshore wind has been a major driver of the data that we have available on the portal. When I first got involved in this project about 10 years ago, it had 140 or 150 different data layers on it, which we thought was like all the data in the world. And now we're over 6,000. We've really, I think, lost count. And so much of this has been driven by the need, now that you've got these freestanding structures being planned for, being constructed, and in some case they're here out in the um, continental shelf, to be able to show, you know, during the planning phases, where are areas that you really would not want offshore wind to go, or undersea cables, or all kinds of other infrastructure. Where are areas that are too sensitive, or if you are part of one of those industries, you could use the portal to help use your planning, to do your planning work analysis. Um, if you're a member of the public, you can use the portal to help share your voice on things, to help use maps during public comment periods to illustrate your points. And we do see a whole lot of that. The U.S. Coast Guard is one important user, for example. They recently went through a series of port access route studies all up and down the East Coast, looking at, in light of offshore wind, in light of climate change, in light of projected shipping volume changes and port infrastructure changes, are the shipping lanes that we've had in place adequate? Do we need to add more? Are there new anchorage areas that we need to add? And so they use the portal to help a lot of their analysis work on this. And then when they opened up the public comment periods, in their Federal Register notices, they pointed people to go to the portal where they can see the different areas that were being studied, the different proposals that we're coming up with, and have continued to do that throughout the process. The Hudson Canyon National Marine Sanctuary proposal that's been out there for a little while, the uh, advisory committee that's helping um, kind of drive a lot of these discussions has been using the portal to help consider, where might this sanctuary actually be? What should the boundaries of it be? What should some of the rules that we would like to see be for it? And that continues right now, and we'll see where it winds up. But we're very happy that the portal has been one of probably many tools that they've used to help with their analysis. One thing that we didn't necessarily set out for when we built the portal, and we've been very happy to see, has been its rise as sort of an educational tool. And we're seeing even middle school, high school classes that are using it for marine science, for economics classes, and so forth. And it's really kept us on our toes to keep the portal very simple, knowing that there are kids and elementary school teachers out there and the like that are using it for things. It's really challenged us to make sure that the terminology that we're using is as layman friendly as possible. And we've really brought it out when there's um, public events like the New Jersey Sea Grant Consortium had Ocean Fun Days recently, and I'll set up a table out there and put the portal up. And it could be as simple as kids coming up and learning where the sharks live, and they get so excited about that. And so, we certainly want to encourage that. It's a great thing. One thing I'll just add before I jump into the portal itself, that we do have a mobile app, which is awesome. And we've had a couple of students here at Monmouth University who were computer science majors that developed it. And we just came out with version 2. We will have our next How Tuesday webinar July 7th, this same time, which will cover the Portal mobile app and the MyCoast app, which um, different states have their own different categories for, and things that they're collecting data for. But Marco has also added some, and the presenter on behalf of MyCoast will be Devin Haynes from the New Jersey DEP. And if you go to our calendar page, you can find out more about that. So with that said, I will go to the portal, and our homepage is portal.midatlanticocean.org. So feel free to follow along if you'd like as I skip through this. Before I get into the map itself, I'll just point out a few other features. We have this blog, which you can find under the news dropdown. So basically, anytime there's some new significant data set or tool that we've added to the portal, you can find some information about it here, how you use it, where it came from, um, those kinds of things. So if you are a semi-frequent portal user, it's a good page to just check in once in a while and see what's new and what's been added. We have this Ocean Stories feature, which is kind of like a homebrew digital magazine meets story map feature. And so um, you can look at, for example, what's a good one? Here's one about a lot of the mid-Atlantic canyons that are kind of lesser discussed, not the Hudson Canyon or some of the most major ones, where there was some recent exploration on that. And I interviewed the um, leader of that expedition, who then talked about some of the things that he saw down there. What were some of the things that jumped out to play at places like Carteret and Linden Coal Canyons? And you can see how the map will change to help tell the story. And then the story will help kind of explain what you're seeing in the map. And so they're good educational features that we've definitely seen classrooms pick up and use for lessons. The calendar page. This is where you can learn about webinars like these, different things coming up in the region that have some kind of application to ocean planning. If you guys have events that your organizations are working on that you'd like to see us listed on here, feel free to just send us a link or whatever information, and we'll be happy to add that here. Current agency actions is a table that we maintain for when there's any kind of an open public comment period or something that's being proposed by one of the agencies out at sea, that you can learn about it. So here's one I just added this morning about a request for information and feedback that the Trump administration just put out. I think today was the Federal Register notice for it, for possible explore, basically looking for marine minerals in areas off of the Virginia coast. And so there is a Federal Register notice link here, a press release, um, an informational page that BOEM keeps, and a link to an interactive map of the area that's under consideration by BOEM that we have on the portal. I will point out groups is just a great way if you're working with people, or if you're a teacher, or you're trying to do some kind of public outreach on things and want to share maps or share some of the things that you've created on the portal. You can do that here and have people join it, have it be private. And I'll talk a little more about that when I get into the tools aspect of the portal. Finally, on the help tab here, you can find our webinars page. This using the portal section is good for finding, different webinars, different diagrams and short video tutorials. If there's something that you've seen me do today that a week or two later, you're wondering, how did he do that? And you're lost, you can probably find some instructions for it on this page. So all that said, I'll jump into the map. And anyone have any questions before I start on this? All right. So here is our mapping application, which we call Marine Planner. By default, it will show you this ocean base map, but if you click on the bottom right, you do have some other options like an Esri Streets map, a satellite map, a gray one if you're just really looking for something simple, or the NOAA charts. We have that here, electronic. So I'll go back to the ocean one, kind of my default, and just very easy to work with and see things. On the left, you'll see those 14 themes that I mentioned earlier. The first one being administrative. And this is pretty much a lot of government boundaries and things like that. And you can see how all I have to do is click any one or more of these layers at a time. And once I've done that, you can go to the active tab to manipulate how they look. So you want this Coast Guard one to be on the bottom, or you want to mute it, or you want to change the opacity to make it, darker or less dark, or you want to get rid of it. You can do that. This little green eye for information icon will give you a short little synopsis of what that layer shows, followed by at the end a read more, which will take you to the full-on data catalog entry for any of these layers. And so for here, if there is, and there usually is, a download, you can get that. See, I just clicked right there and it sent me a zip file, a metadata link, the source, where did it come from, tiles, if you have your own GIS software at your work, you can get the URL for that layer if you want to directly bring it in and ingest it. So, we definitely try to view the portal as a public information effort and make everything that we possibly can downloadable. There are some data sets where there are privacy issues that we have to we had to sign for, when we got data from NOAA or whatever the provider is, and can't make that, or maybe there's a special instruction about someone that you need to reach out to make that request first. At the very bottom, there is a option to clear all the layers, which is just a quick, easy way to get back to status quo or just relaunch the map. The next theme is aquaculture. This is all state data. Uh, as it sounds, just showing areas that aquaculture is currently um, permitted or not permitted. You can see those areas. Um, Click on them for pop-up information in a lot of cases. And that's true with a whole lot of our data where we do have a lot of links and information about things that are in there once you click on the data. Conservation, a lot of layers showing areas along the coast or at sea that have some kind of conservation measures applied to them. So you'll see things like um, the various monuments and marine national sanctuaries that are in the mid-Atlantic or nearby. There aren't many here in the mid-Atlantic. Technically, by our boundaries, you're really just dealing with this Mallows Bay, Potomac River one, but we have stuff like the Monitor, which is the final resting place of the famous Civil War ship, Stellwagen up here in um, off the New England coast, um, and a whole lot of other stuff here which would be of similar interest. Fishing. Our commercial fishing data is broken down into a few categories. And we did just reorganize a lot of this a couple of months ago. So fishery specific, as it sounds, really is data that applies to um, a specific fishery. So for example, if you were to go here and you were interested in surf clam data, you can see the VMS, which is kind of electronically tracked data showing surf clam and ocean quahog, which have been lumped together in the past, but we have them in some cases separate, in some cases together. A little bit of a low time for this guy. Um, but I'll move on while that one's thinking about it. NOAA fishing footprints data for, again, clam, ocean quahog in there. We have different management areas that apply to that particular fishery. All right, I'm going to just come and reload because I think I got hung up on something. Okay, and then multi-fishery would show, for example, data for when it's by gear type, and those gears apply to multiple fisheries. So here's one example for bottom trawl, and that shows by revenue for 2011 through 15. Here's another one for 2016 through 2020. Bottom trawl revenue, and there's lots of others in here. Recreational fishing for right now is party and charter boat. I just had a funny slip up on that. These are a bit old, but I think are still pretty useful, and we do want to get the data to refresh these sometime very soon. These are part of our, or came in as part of our broader communities at sea uh, data project. And we call it that because you can click on any point in the map and it'll give you this pop-up that shows the ports, the communities that relied on that particular area at sea. Um, and you can find that full catalog right beneath it. So here's, for example, dredge. And I'll zoom out a bit. Same thing, this big spot, you can see people from Barnegat fished there, Virginia, Massachusetts, Connecticut, really gives that view of the uh, multi-state nature of commercial fishing. And you can click on the ports, and it'll give you a pop-up that tells you or gives you a sense of the economic importance for, in this case, dredge boats. So Point Pleasant right here, in that 1 5 year time period, 4,709 total trips, about 10% of the regional total fisher days. So that's how many people were working on ships in all of those days. And so, if you are somebody who is working at a federal agency and you're doing some kind of a proposal related to this area at sea, you would really know, hey, these are the ports that we should probably do some definite outreach around. Artificial reefs is one of our most popular layers on the portal, not just for commercial fishing, but probably a lot of recreational fishers are using it and like it. Our habitat theme next. This is where you'd find a lot of data related to the seafloor and areas along the immediate coast. Our bathymetry is all in here. So the blue topo data that we have from NOAA, which is kind of the best, um, most current picture of all bathymetry that's been gathered that the federal government has sewn together. And you can really zoom in here and see in cases like where there's reefs, you can see the specific outlines of boats here and bottom contour, which is pretty awesome and um, as clear as it gets in at least some spots. Marine life, I should probably point out from the start that we have two themes here. Marine life, which really gets at different groups of marine life, and then the marine life library, which is species specific. So for an example, you see our maps that show different groups of birds, so all avian species, for example. I'll zoom out. So that's relative density of all of the seabirds. But let's say that you are interested in one type of bird. Um, for example, surf scoter. You can go to avian relative density, and it would give you these monthly maps. So it is June. Where are they now? Zoom out. Well, not in the mid-Atlantic. Let's find another one that's more fun. How about herring gull, which is just about as common of a seagull as it gets, relative density. And you see a lot of these, the greens and the blues that differentiate where they are. And it same goes with marine mammals. If you go up in that marine life theme, fish data, plankton, etc. There's just a lot of stuff here. Sea turtles, um, critical habitat protection areas that we have, zooplankton. Our maritime theme gets at a lot of the human use data that we have. So things like AIS vessel transit counts. AIS is kind of like an easy pass transponder that you might have in your car that pings the infrastructure, in this case onshore, every couple of minutes to position, to show the name of the boat, some information about it, where it is, and we take that data from all of those pings that come every day throughout the hours and put together these maps that show the full pattern. And this is all boats that have AIS transponders on them, but you can see fishing vessels, cargo, passenger, sailboats, tankers, tugs, tows. So there's different ways of looking at it. And we have what we call our monthly data sliders. This can take a little bit of time to load, but it's all of those same categories, but it's monthly now. And so if you go to our active tab, you can manually toggle through or click a button to automatically animate and see these maps and how they change throughout the months. So that's the all one. A good kind of seasonal picture one is fishing. And I'll click and just let it go. And this is how you use all of the sliders that we have. In some cases, it's one slider, or in other cases, two that you have choices for. And I'll close out of that. But Maritime also has stuff like channels, ferry routes, ocean disposal sites. This one, managed sediments and sand, is where we just added this morning uh, the area that is being has been open for public comment right now off Virginia for marine mineral leasing possibilities, but also stuff in there like the BOEM sand resources and where beach replenishment projects are being done and things like that. Oceanography, the physical characteristics of the ocean. We have stuff like historic storm track data, um, bottom temperature monthly slider. So this is a good example that touches a little on uh, what I mentioned in that slide up toward the beginning. And well, looks like there's a slow load on that. Something like this one here. Oh, I love when I'm doing a live technology demo and things don't work so well. All right, something will work. Storm tracks, fun. Okay. Great. Sorry about that, guys. I'm just going to reload the map here. Something might have gotten hung up. And I'll move on to recreation, though. A lot of great stuff here, like where um, coastal water trails are located, where there are publicly accessible boat launches. A lot of great stuff that this is another example of where um, state data has really come in and helped us uh, put together great regional packages. In this case, all 5 of the Mid-Atlantic states had something of their own that was pretty similar and well maintained. So we thought, instead of us trying to create our own composite map, why not take this straight from the states, where anytime that they make a change on their end, it'll automatically come through instantly on our side. And you can see all of this great stuff, which you can click on any of these points for information about that particular boat launch. Under that, renewable energy, which for a long time was the data on the portal that got the most traffic. A lot less so over the last year as things have quieted down on that front. But you see kind of 4 buckets that we have everything organized here, from least far along to most far along. So the planning and lease areas, stuff that really is at the very early proposal stage. Here you have the renewable energy leases, whether or not anything is built out there or not. Um, Beneath that, you've got projects that are under review. So where um, a specific proposal was made for an area and where they would like their turbines to go, cables, those kinds of things you can see. Beneath that, permitted projects are projects that either are under construction or have been approved for construction, whether or not they've gone forward. And then finally, operational offshore energy projects, which stuff like off the coast of Virginia, where there are actually turbines built and generating um, and sending power from sea to land, where it then connects to these high voltage transmission lines, which is one of the fairly few um, onshore layers that we have here on the portal, or relatively few. Um, Let me clear the deck and move on down to security. So a lot of declassified naval data of where there's training areas, danger zones and restricted areas. So where are there places that you need special permission, or at least at some times to enter certain areas where they're right offshore of naval bases. Things like places where munitions and explosives have been dumped or been found. You can find that. Socioeconomic, a lot of data here showing the importance of the ocean directly to um, business. And so ocean economic GDP, which is derived from census data, you can see for each county and click for a pop-up that will tell you the um, number of jobs that are directly dependent on the ocean, the number of businesses that are, the wages that were earned. Now, this is 2017 data. We were going to update this a few years ago after the last census data was available, but that was post-COVID, and a lot of these numbers went down. It was really just an aberration, and we kind of thought that keeping it as is for a little while would actually be more accurate than what we were seeing. But we are looking to update this with newer data very soon. But there is some other good economic data in that folder. And then finally, last, water quality. So you can see here things like where are the pipes that are directly flowing uh, wastewater out to sea, and what are the different places that are associated with them, whether they be power plants or wastewater, facilities that are taking sewage. Um, the different, if you click on the legend, there are um, different sizes and colors to these circles that give an indication of how much is being pumped out into the water. And you can click any of them for a pop-up that will tell you what it is, and an EPA link to, in case that one's down, but um, to a profile from the EPA of that specific facility. So with all that said, there are some tools here. Some of these you do need to be a registered portal user to access. That costs nothing. All you need is an email, and you just give it a password, and that's it. And it is, I think, greatly worth it. But everything that you've seen me do so far, you wouldn't have needed one to do. But you have a print export button if um, you wanted to make a print friendly version of a map or just export one as a high resolution PDF. You can do that. You can click this little icon for a short URL or an embed map if you've got a website of your own that you'd like to embed a little mini version of the portal or of that particular map on your page, you can do that. We've got this linear measurement tool. Let's say if you needed to just get a quick indication of how many miles, kilometers, or nautical miles it is from one place to another at sea. An area measurement tool if you wanted to draw a polygon over something and figure out, again, how many square miles, square kilometers, or square acres that area is. And then the final two touch on tools that are available in our My Planner tab. So um, these are basically different features that you can save on the portal. So bookmarks is if you create a map, let's say artificial reefs, and we'll do recreational fishing. I think there's a good overlap between those most of the time. That tells a story. Often the reefs are sort of like the donut holes in the middle of some of the most intense areas. And slow load. Let me reload that. Okay, better. And I think I'll move the reefs to the top. And I will darken this a little bit. And now I want to save this. So all I'd have to do is click New, give it a name like Rec Fishing and Reefs. If you wanted to type in a short description, you could do that, but you don't have to. Now add bookmark, it's done. So let's say I was coming in fresh into the portal and I wanted to look at that map again. All I'd have to do is go under My Planner, look under my list of bookmarks, and click it. Oh, I clicked the wrong bookmark. Sorry about that. All right. And it will take you to that map. Looks like I had that other one clicked, and so it brought that one in as well. One more time for good measure. So that was Rec, Fishing, and Reefs. There we go. And notice how it will take you pretty much to that same zoom level as where you saved it. Once you've done that, this little gear icon gives you some options. Uh, if you want to share it, you can get a quick URL for it, an embed code, or if you click on this groups tab, if you've created your own group, you can just check the boxes for anything that you want to share it in, and then any member of your group would have that bookmark in their list as well. Moving on, the Shapes tool gives you a lot of options. You can here either draw polygons, draw lines, draw points. If you have a spreadsheet full of different coordinates, you can upload them If you have your own shape files, you can upload them, GeoJSONs and KMLs. Very easy stuff. So it really gives you a lot of capability if you don't have your own GIS software to do a lot of stuff that people who do have that would normally need those kinds of subscriptions and those paid tools for free, which is great. Really trying to make the portal as accessible as possible. User imported layers is if you knew of a layer that was outside of the portal, whether it has something to do with C or anything, if you have that URL, you can actually just drop it in, um, tell whether it's a REST service or a feature service, and you can then bring it in and save it. And so here's a few examples of ones. This Virginia Basins one, where it looks like I'd taken this link and found it, but it can be anything. So here's one, air layers. I don't even know what that is. Let's find out. Just do a test. And that was the layer ID here, 293. Well, not even sure what that brought, however. Anyway, hopefully I've made the point. Just another really useful way to get something else that you're working on outside of the portal in here so that you can compare it with all of the thousands of data layers that we have. So you know what? I think I'm going to stop there. I went longer than I thought and just open it up for any questions you have of anything you've seen or not seen on the portal. Feel free to just turn your camera on and ask.
Hi, Karl. This is Lauren. Thanks for sharing this morning. It was great to see. I just kind of actually had a little bit of a back end question and
Sure.
wondering, is this like a product you guys built yourself? Is it hosted through Esri or like how is it kind of configured?
Good, great question. So the portal is actually open source. We have built it ourselves. Our developer EcoTrust has. You can actually download the entire portal yourself if you wanted to and put your own stuff on it. Um, so that has given us, we think, the flexibility to create a lot of these custom tools that we have. Um, and we've built to it and developed it over the years. So yeah, totally open source. We use Wagtail as the CMS for all of our editorial kind of content and Django for the back end to feed it all of the data. Um, but yeah, it's open layers it's built on.
That's great. It definitely gives you like more flexibility and control to build your own. And then for the actual layers themselves, I love the example of like being able to import layers from other sources, but do you guys then just database and catalog all of these layers, or are you just calling from the authoritative sources where they're originally hosted,
Uh,
or both?
okay, so when you're using the import tool, um, that is purely pulling on the spot from the external site and pulling it in. Um, and just showing whatever that shows. That would not be shown on the portal. It would only be in your bookmarks. As for the other stuff that we have just in the regular data listings, for layers that are coming in externally. We are we like to go to the authoritative source whenever possible. That is our preference, especially if the data provider does maintain their stuff with a good degree of regularity, because that has the advantage of anytime they make any additions on their end, they automatically come through. With all of this stuff that we have on here, it's hard to keep track and therefore easy to lose track if, there's something going on in an individual state that we didn't hear about. So that is by default our preference, but there are exceptions where, for one reason or another, we prefer to just get a hold of that federal or state data and serve it ourselves. An example of that might be if it's a full national data set, and because it's all over the country, it's a lot of data in a slow load. And we will then just clip it to show the Mid Atlantic or the Mid Atlantic and the New England states if the Northeast portal expresses an interest for us to, for them to have it as well. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Heather. Um, is there anything that you're wondering if we have on the portal that I didn't show? It's always hard to kind of on the fly know what exactly to show, and a lot of stuff that there just wasn't time for. Anything you guys can tell me about what we could do on the portal or add to it that would be useful for your work, um, that would make you more inclined to use it, or anything like that? We're always um, highly open to any ideas that we get from users. I should point out this little orange box on the bottom provide feedback. Um, if there's ever something that comes to mind for a question like that, or if you're ever using it and there's a layer down where you can't figure out something, you can just fill that out and I check it. Myself and two other members of our team get those emails automatically, and I promise I do respond to them very quickly. Or you can just email me directly, or use the email that we have here, portal@midatlanticocean.org, and that comes to me as well.
Hey Carl, I have a quick question. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Um, so I'm looking at some of the wildlife layers, and I was just curious, if the time periods in each of these sort of data sets, they all kind of like vary, right?
They
Like
do.
there one will be 2007 to 2014, another one will be like a different period. And a lot of them like overlap, some of them don't. So it's a little bit hard to compare, distribution to distribution. Is there any plan to like standard, is that based one on the data collection efforts that these data are pulled from? And is there any plan to like standardize sort of that period of that layer? So
That's
like
a really good
everything would
question.
be 2010 to 2019 or and then
Yeah. I
so
hadn't
it's
thought
more
about
apples to
that.
apples.
I hadn't thought about that before, but as you bring it up, I think um, the explanation there really tends to be tied to A, the data provider, and B, Duke, which does so much of our data, our marine life data development. They do all of the data that we call our MDAT data, the Marine Data Analysis Team. So that is basically everything that you'd find under this birds dropdown, anything you'd find under the marine mammals dropdown, and also a lot of the fish stuff. Um, so I think the way they work, they're very good at standardizing a lot of the things that they do, and that makes a lot of sense. In other cases, though, we are pulling, some of this data is from other providers, or maybe the underlying data for it is only available for, in this case, right, like 2003 through '09 and not anything further back. And then we've got, another decade after that. So sometimes it just is a matter of what we had at our disposal. Um, it is always nice when you can standardize these things and keep them in neat decade levels and things like that. Um, so that is good feedback, and we can certainly try to do more of that whenever possible.
Yeah, it's just something to think about. Because sometimes if the time frame that each of these layers, if you're trying to compare like maybe ichthyoplankton to some, right whale distributions or something, those time periods might not overlap exactly. So
Yeah, that
if
matters.
there's efforts, if there's any possibility of standardizing into like, 5 year time frames or 10 year or whatever makes sense, that would, I think, be useful.
Great. Thank you.
Otherwise, great. I use the map all the time and it's a great resource. So really appreciate everything that you guys are doing.
Thank you. All right, we are at 1 o'clock. That flew by. I talked a lot. I usually try and go through my spiel in about a half hour, and I think I went crazy today. So thank you for your patience with that. So I will end it here if there's no more further questions, but you guys know how you can always get a hold of me anytime. And thanks to everybody again for joining. And a reminder, if you're interested and available, our next How Tuesday webinar will be at this same time on Tuesday, July 7th, and that will cover the mobile app version of the portal and MyCoast. And you can find all the details about that on our calendar page, which again is right here under the news dropdown. So if I don't see any of you guys or hear back from you before then, have a great start to your summer and hope to see you again soon.
Thanks, Carl.
Thank you. Thanks a bunch. Bye bye.